What's up, guys? Welcome back to Legends Never Die, where neither will you if you know Jesus. Today is a really, really special video that I'm excited to share the story of a lifetime for me with you guys today. I haven't made any content in about 2.5 months because I've been busy with everything related to this story. You may be able to tell from the title that I purchased the collection of a lifetime. And how it started is as crazy as what happened and what is sitting in this room around me that you can't see right now. But it simply started like this. I have been acquiring and moving sports cards to build my own collection for about 5 years now. Pretty off the radar, off the record kind of deal. But there are some people that have gotten stuff from me fairly frequently over time, even outside of YouTube. People I've started to communicate with just basically as internet friends that I would know even less than some of the guys I'll be bringing on screen with me today. But what happened? I was sitting in this room one night, and a guy that I sold a lot of things to over the past few years said, "Hey man," sent me a picture through Facebook Messenger. "Do you know what this is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know what this item is." And he's like, "Well, how would you go about even figuring that out? Like, I had no clue." It was a 1935 Quaker Oats Babe Ruth pen. And I told him what it was, and, hey, use, eBay sold listings, use 130 point. Those are some ways that you can find out for free. Use, VCP if you have it. And he's like, "Man, I don't know what half that stuff is." I said, also places like forums like Net54 are helpful. Like if you're researching, that's what I would do. And he said, "Oh, thanks. That's helpful, but I don't know what a lot of that stuff is. I got some homework to do." And I was like, "So what's the deal? Like, are you selling it, or like, do you know somebody that has it? Like, what's going on with this Babe Ruth pen?" I mean, that in itself was interesting. I own the little umpire clicker Babe Ruth thing, and this is kind of from that same line with Quaker Oats. So I had some interest in finding out if it was for sale. And he said, "Well, actually, a friend of mine has it for sale." And being the savvy collector that I am, the next question was, "Does he have anything else?" And boy, did he have some other stuff. So he told me a little bit of the background of his friend. I'm not going to use their real names here. I will refer to a couple things and where some stuff was located, but I don't want to give away too many details. But he basically was like, my friend, his dad apparently owned a card shop in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. It closed about 15, 20 years ago. And since then, essentially the contents of that card shop have been in a storage unit. And the son, who semi-collected himself, had been also purchasing things both in his childhood up to current day and basically just adding to what was this card shop in the storage unit. But he didn't collect like maybe we would sitting in a man cave with his stuff displayed and that sort of thing. He was just kind of compiling a collection, accumulating this stuff. Some would say when we talk about the story that he was hoarding these things. But I said, okay, I'd be interested, kind of what does he have? And my main point of contact, we went back and forth that night. It was kind of late. He said, "Find out some more information, get back to me." A few days later, he messages me and "Hey, my friend dropped off a box of stuff for me that he would like to potentially sell already. It's a fraction of the stuff that he has, but, I'll shoot you some pictures when I get home." Okay. And I'm like, "Any idea what this guy has?" And he's like, "It's a mess. It's all over the place. It's in these storage units. There's no organization to it. I could tell you a few items that I've seen myself, 6 months ago, but who knows if he still has it, where it is, that kind of thing." Okay. So my friend, gets home. He sends me some pictures, and it may have only been 30 items, but I was shocked. Let's just say there was a mix of pre-war, there was a mix of modern, there was a mix of vintage, enough that I saw several $1,000s worth of cards in his possession, including a shoeless Joe Jackson B18 blanket. And at this point, I'm like, all right, am I getting scammed? Like, is this for real? Are these real pictures? Like, he didn't date them or, coin them or anything for me. And so I asked him, I said, could you FaceTime me? Because I want to know right away, like, is this legit? Does he really even have this stuff? And he said, yeah, let me, finish up supper and I'll FaceTime you in like an hour. And I'm like, all right, we'll find out. Sure enough, that's the first time I met him face to face virtually, and he had this stuff and it was real. And I'm like, all right, give me all the details. What have you seen? What's the scale? How much stuff is in there? What do you think he's got? What do you know that he's got? Just asking every question I can think of to get a gauge of this collection. And the son of this former card shop owner had not showed this to anyone at this point. To his knowledge, he had not sold anything out of it. And he was a little wary on anybody seeing it, coming to get it, any of that kind of stuff. Now, a key point of this story comes in right here. This stuff and these guys are located in Alabama. Okay, I'm in North Carolina. It is several hours ride to Alabama. So if I'm going to potentially do this, I don't want to get down there and it be a room full of junk wax era, 90s commons. Like, I'm not driving and making all the arrangements to make that happen to go down there. And so he's like, let me talk to my friend and I'll get back to you. Okay, 24 hours goes by. They talked, and he said he wants to talk to you on the phone. So, all right, calls me up. We have a great conversation. Turns out we're both believers. My friend had shared with him what I do for a living, that I'm a pastor. And a lot of that, I guess, gave, him some comfort and credibility in his mind that maybe I can trust this guy. So he said, hey, I'll go to the storage unit tomorrow, and I will pull some things and send you some pictures of some stuff that I've got to see if you're interested. And this is the first time at this point he says a number of what he's interested in getting for all of it. Now, I'm not going to share what I ultimately paid. I'm going to share this number to give you an idea of what we're getting into. He said, I want $50,000 for everything. And I'm like, okay, because I just want to see pictures. I want to see what I'm getting into and if it's even remotely in the ballpark of what it could be worth. He goes to the storage unit the next day. He sends me pictures of these things, and I comb over them. I look up stuff for hours and hours. I catalog. I start building a spreadsheet, and I see about 20 grand worth of stuff in these pictures. I also got a picture of the room. It's about a 10 by 15 storage unit, halfway stacked to the ceiling of giant bins, boxes. I can see cards and different things around the room as well. But I can't see everything, obviously. We're talking tens of thousands of cards and items in this storage unit. And I'm like, all right, we're within the realm of this might be possible. And I said, do you have any other pictures? He said, oh, yeah, I started taking some before this as I was thinking about listing some things. Well, send those to me. Okay, sends those to me. I see about another 10 grand worth of stuff. We're getting close to value of what I've seen for his request. I have not responded with a number. I haven't said I could do it, anything like that. But it starts becoming a real possibility that I might actually go to Alabama and try and purchase an entire storage unit worth of a former sports card shop several states away from me. So I reach out to my brother. I reach out to my dad, like, hey, like, are you guys available to go with me, like, this coming weekend to Alabama for this purpose? Because I don't want to miss out on this once in a lifetime opportunity before this guy decides to show it to someone local, decides to ask someone else. If someone else has a chance to offer or see this stuff, like, I want to jump on it if this is even possible. My brother and my dad say yes. The guy, we talk a little bit more. We talk on the phone a couple times. He knocks himself down to $40,000 ask without me ever saying a word, making an offer, inkling that I could even potentially be in that realm. But he got close enough to what I've seen in value that, okay, it's worth going to see it. Even if I don't buy it, it's worth going to see it. But if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do something on this scale. I'm just thinking to myself, there's no way I can go through all of this in a day and get a handle on this stuff and know what I'm looking at to potentially put that kind of money on the line with just one guy that knows cards and collectibles and values in myself. Now, my brother collected when we were kids. He knows enough to know, okay, this card's old. Yeah, it's Babe Ruth. Like, I know who that is, but he doesn't know, like, what sets are, what, like, a good fake would be, what grading companies are good. He's not going to know enough detail to really, really help. And my dad's clueless about collectibles. So he's no help at all. He's basically along for the ride. He's security, okay? Papa Brewer's security on this trip. So I text one of my friends and I'm telling him this story and I throw it out to him and I say, hey, what would you think about going to Alabama with me to see this collection that was used to be a sports card shop in Alabama? And I texted none other than Dom at Staven Sports Cards. So, Dom, when I first dropped this on you and told you the story and asked you the question, like, what was going through your head? What was your reaction? Like, tell us a little bit from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, just the pictures that you were getting shared, you were sharing with me, and just seeing the names, the variety of eras, and the value that we kind of both saw with all these photos, and then the just excitement of what else is in here. If this is just a random sampling that he pulled one day when he went down to take pictures, it was very, very exciting. It was, chasing cardboard-esque, Storage Wars-esque, like just the thrill of the hunt. And it's something that, like you said, a truly once in a lifetime thing. So when you were talking about, man, like this is a lot for me to go through, I was just like, there are flights from Connecticut to Charlotte. Like I can come down, and made the arrangements, came down, and was very, very excited to just to dig through, and knowing that me and you could divide and conquer in that space and really dig through, keep it moving.
That's right.
And just keep going till we could realize, hey, he said 40,000, you had X amount from the pictures. What else is actually there in value before we actually start throwing out numbers? So it was really, really exciting, and just the thrill of what else could be in there was top of mind.
I know. And when I reached out to you, I was like, dude, what's it going to take to get you to North Carolina? Like, I got to have some help from somebody. I'd actually asked the Drew first because he's closer to me in Georgia, and he wasn't available that weekend. And our friend Will in Virginia wasn't available. And I'm like, man, like I don't have anybody else like super close to me that like really knows, collectibles, the hobby and everything that like could potentially go to drop of a hat. And I halfway jokingly was like, you want to come to North Carolina? And you were like, maybe. And I'm like, so what's it going to take? Like, I'm for real. Like, let's make it happen. So, we got you here and Dom flew in to Charlotte, which is like 30 minutes from where I live or so, on Friday night. And I picked him up at the airport, I think roughly like 6 o'clock, Dom, something like that, 5:30. And got him back to my house, ate supper with my family, got, totally destroyed in a game of Sorry by my 3-year-old son. Dom had to learn that all over again against Luca, but, Luca taught him the rules. It was fine. But once the boys got to sleep, about 9 o'clock Eastern, where we were at, we then drove west in the state of North Carolina to where I'm from, where my brother and my dad still live in Franklin. So at 9, Dom and I drive 3 hours basically west to get to my parents' house. We go to sleep, I don't know, about 1 a.m. or so after we get settled in. We sleep for 5 hours, I think, Friday night. Get up that morning with my dad and drive to my brother's house and head out to Alabama. Now, on that drive from where I live to Franklin, Dom and I, he was scrolling back through the pictures that we had gotten earlier in the day, basically double checking some values, trying to get the best handle that we could on this stuff. So, I mean, Dom himself put in like 2 hours right there on that ride, helping me price and prepare. So then we get into the trip to Alabama. Now at this point, Dom's in the know. My family, my brother, my dad, my mom, and my wife are in the know. But then we tell the rest of our little group chat, which consists of myself, Dom, the Drew, the Drew of Vintage Legacy, our friend Will, and then Jared. So they're kind of, in the know now. We had sent them some of the pictures on the trip that Friday night. They're asking a bunch of questions. And to add an additional layer here to the story, an additional perspective from someone that was not actually on the car ride, but kind of a spectator to the whole thing, the Drew is here to share kind of what was going on from his perspective and how he's going to play into this story. So, Drew, you came into all of this after you knew that you couldn't go with me, and then found out Dom was with me, and we headed to Franklin Friday night. So, what was running through your head, the initial reaction to like what was there and like your perspective?
Well, I mean, like you guys, I saw a lot of the same pictures and I did exactly what you did, which was zoom in because I'll give you an example. One of the pictures, it had nothing but like the 3 row count boxes, like 2 or 3 of them in a row. And you could see, I remember there was a 92 Donruss uh, Roberto Alomar. I remember that card there. So that's a nothing card, there's no value in that. You're not going to drive to anywhere, especially Alabama, to get that. But what I did also notice was kind of behind it and tucked up underneath. I think there was I don't remember. I don't remember the year, but it was a 1960 something Sandy Koufax. But that's not what he was showing. He was showing the Alomar. So I'm like, well, what else is in there? So that curiosity was building, and like, what are we not seeing? I get what we can see, but what are we not seeing? And like Dom said, that became the storage wars, the feeling of like, what do you're peeking and looking as best as you can. And so that was my perspective. And of course, you and I had talked personally or privately about the potential and the financial thing, the amount of work, the amount of time, the amount of volume. How are you going to do this? How are you going to approach an offer? How much time do you have? How are you going to get it back to North Carolina? All that kind of stuff. So that's what I had all that already through conversations, but I did not know Dom was coming. In fact, I was off Friday, and you and I had a conversation that day, like on the phone, and we talked about this. And never once did you mention, "Hey, by the way, Dom's coming." No, that totally slipped your mind somehow. But so I didn't know about Dom until we get a picture, and I see you and Dom like smiling, like a couple of little kids that got caught with your hand in the cookie jar in your room, and I'm like, well, 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 look how this is. So, that was my thing. Was I was like, well, what else is going on? So, I knew about a lot of the details, just not, the one that obviously with Dom. But anyway, um, but Saturday, we all knew you were going, and I had stuff to do. That's why I couldn't join you. I really had a lot to do during the day. And so, I sent some basic questions in our text thread, and maybe it was Jared or Will as well. Like, hey, you got on the road yet?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and we're getting nothing, like nothing. And I'm like, maybe they're in bad reception. Maybe they're just talking nonstop. I mean, you and I have been on a road trip together, Jake. So, I mean, there's lots of conversation, but there's nothing. And so there was parts of the day where we who weren't there, we sort of forgot about it. It wasn't in the forefront. We're like, well, they're busy. We don't know. But then all of a sudden we get, I can't remember the first text, but there was just a photo or something of like the storage unit. And we're like, oh, what's going on? What do you see? Da, da, da. All these questions, nothing. Just send the picture and then completely leave us in the dark. So there was hours, literal hours, 4 or 5, 6 hours in between a little taste, a little hint, and then nothing. And we're getting nothing. So it's almost like, you try to like, okay, I'm calmed down, nothing, nothing, and then you threw out something else. So that's kind of what we were doing. Was we were trying to put it on the back burner because we weren't there, and then you would throw it up in the front again and then pull back again. So that was kind of the frustrating thing for us, was like, what's going on? So anyway, that's where we were on it.
When to like explain the type of like anticipation that they were feeling, it wasn't like you just saw, like the Alomar and something behind it. Because like I did share all of the pictures that I had seen with our group
Mhm.
chat. Some of the stuff that we saw in the pictures in advance, we're talking T206s. We're talking graded Jordans. We're talking graded Kobe's. We're talking vintage football Hall of Famers. We're talking modern like 90s inserts of like Griffey, like
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah. Tom Brady graded rookie card, which I don't care about football, but I knew that one. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah. We saw pictures of sealed wax. We saw like the Babe Ruth pins, there are some the sweet Caporal pins. We saw the coins, all kinds of stuff before we ever got there. So we knew that there was good stuff. So knowing that there was this potentially like once in a lifetime collection, and then just like radio silence had to be killer.
It was, again, it's sort of like, I don't know, like a little kid, Christmas is coming, but it's not today. So you sort of put it in the back of your mind. And then, I don't know, you get a hint, or like all of a sudden your parents, they got you something, or they're like, oh, we got you something for Christmas. And it's right there again, but you still can't touch it. You can't feel it, or, oh, that's what it was like. So I'm trying to go through the day and do my regular life stuff. And as a by the way, in case people don't know, I had plans to go that night with Jared to a baseball game, to a Braves game. He invited me and my daughter to a Braves game. So that's why I was so crammed. I had all of my stuff I had to get done before I went to this Braves game. None of that had to do with the Alabama run that they were on. So I'm like trying to get my stuff done just so I can have time and then to go to this game that night. So I'm also looking forward to that time too. So that's kind of where I was, and then eventually Jared joined me, and we conversed about it, and it was like, well, did you hear anything? Well, did you hear anything? And nothing. So yeah, the anticipation was definitely high.
So we arrive in Alabama. My brother drove the whole way. He's a UPS driver for a living. He probably called himself the professional driver like 87 times on this trip. So thank you, Jeb, when you watch this video. So we get there and we get out. My friend that was the main contact, he comes out and brings the seller out with him. And, we do the whole intro thing, shake hands, all that stuff. We walk into the storage unit place. He opens it. We see it, and we're like, oh, my goodness. And, not to jump too far ahead, but Dom sent one text after we got there before the whole story was done. What was the text that you sent to our group chat, Dom?
About 2 hours into looking through the storage unit, I just sent all caps holy cards because I realized like how I had not looked at my phone for 2 hours because I was going through so many cards. Like we're talking like Scooby-Doo sandwich stacks of slabs, vintage Hall of Famers, autographs, everything. Like it was just absurd. And we had Jeb and Papa Brewer taking shifts with a notebook, just writing down everything of value that we were seeing as we were going through, just like rapid fire, like, hey, like this is it. And it was a lot of volume, but quality sprinkled all throughout. It wasn't just all 92 Alomars. There was a 92 Alomar, and then like Drew said, there was a Koufax, and then Hall of Fame autograph, and all these different things. It was unorganized chaos, but also just so fun. And I'm glad you brought up a Christmas reference, because when I woke up after a full day of travel, flying, got to see Jake's card room for the first time and go through that, and then driving again, and then getting like no sleep, and then driving to Alabama. Like that whole thing, I ran on like single digit hours of sleep that whole weekend. But it was just that genuine excitement that this hobby all gives us that was like really driving me forward. Like I can't wait to open these bins and see what we're getting here. So it was a lot of excitement and fun.
When Dom and I especially, like at one point on the drive, it just became like two separate conversations because Dom and I went into game plan mode. Because the plan was I took two empty, like big storage bins with us. And I said, all right, Dom, when we get there, we're going to divide and conquer anything that we have already essentially comped and priced out that we saw in pictures that we know we're not double counting this in value, because it's not like we got 1 2-row box or a couple boxes on a table and it's easy to tell we didn't double count stuff. This is a ridiculous scale. It's a literal storage unit. So I'm like, anything that we saw in the pictures, we pull it, we put it in those 2 bins. Then after that, like he mentioned, my dad and my brother, writing on a notepad, anything that was like $50 plus. Now, we didn't announce like values out loud. We don't want the seller to know like what we're talking numbers here. But we said, hey, write down, T202 Hassan double folder. Hey, write down, Kobe Bryant, Bowman's best rookie, stuff like that, so that we can get an idea on this list if we need to quickly add up, an idea of value that we can see if this is a real possibility or not. I mean, the last thing I wanted to do is go in there and just spitball. I knew that we couldn't go through everything. There was just no way, because we also made the decision to not get the U-Haul in advance, because I didn't want to be out a couple $100 and like getting down there and food and so on and so forth, and a U-Haul on top of that if I don't even make the deal. So we decided that we weren't going to get it until we got down there. We did call one on the way to make sure we had one kind of on hold, available, that kind of thing. But we did not have the U-Haul in our possession. So Dom sent that text, the Holy Cards Batman text, because once we arrived, we legit, not an over-exaggeration, we spent 6 hours in that storage unit going through stuff as fast as we possibly could, pulling out the good stuff, separating into piles outside of this storage unit in the hallway, trying to get a handle on it. And like, I'm chit-chatting a little bit with the guy that's there, that's the seller and my contact, but I'm trying to go through stuff. Now, Dom and my brother were able to mainly just go through things. He was mostly trying to talk with me, which is fine, but mainly me. Now, Dom, do you remember what happened that was really funny for you guys that was happening to me in the conversations with the seller?
In terms of funny, that you're really leaving me open here, because I had my head down, dude. Like, I was working. So
it's something he kept getting wrong. I know you won't forget it.
I didn't think we were gonna say that in this.
Yeah, why not?
But Jake, the formerly Ticket Leprechaun, as he will always be known to me, was getting called Patrick the entire time. It was the first time it didn't register because I was working, but when I kept hearing Patrick throughout the entire 6 hours of looking through cards, I kept like looking up every single time, and Jake would not react. Jake would like wait a moment, see if he like understood that wasn't his name, and then Jake would just go over because he's such a nice guy. But yeah, even though he got introduced, they talked on the phone, all those things. For whatever reason, there was like a mental thing that didn't click, and Jake was Patrick for the day. And I almost completely forgot about that, because like I said, like I was going to work with it, and I told you, being a pastor, like, is the perfect job for you, because that level of patience, like if someone got my name wrong like 3-4 times in a row, I feel like I'd have to say something, and I can be sarcastic, so I don't know if it would have came off the best. So you handled it beautifully. But yes, Jake, I should change your contact to Patrick in my phone, so I never forget that story again. But that was fun throughout the whole thing.
He legit called me Patrick, no exaggeration, like 15 times. Mm-hmm. And I just like rolled with it, because I'm like, I think I corrected him the first time, because like I just introduced myself in person, corrected him the first time. He's like, oh yeah, my bad. And then he really did call me Patrick like 14 more times, and I just let it ride, because I'm like, I don't care, it's cool, and also I don't have time to keep correcting. I'm trying to go through this stuff, man. Like I don't want to get into the whole thing. So, Dom, one more thing, and then we'll kind of loop it back to Drew here. But you mentioned how disorganized this was, and it really was. Like, the shocking thing is there wasn't a lot of junk wax, like loose singles, like hardly at all. Like, I really expected there to be a lot more. So when I talk about lesser stuff, I mean like okay, here are some like cheaper 90s Griffies, like a few bucks, whatever a piece, $5 cards, that kind of thing. Nothing horrible. But like you're going through that stack and like there's some Bonds, Jeters, okay. And then like in the middle of that, it'd be like a 1933 Gaudy Eddie Collins. And it's just like, what? And that happened over and over again. And the other interesting thing, like there were multiple bubble mailers, packages that were either half opened or completely sealed of stuff that he had purchased and just like put in one of those bins.
Yep.
And like sometimes you'd pull it out and it'd be like 90s discs of, Derek Jeter. And then other times you open it and you're like, here's a 1947 exhibit of Jackie Robinson. Like, that we almost started making it a game, like holding it up and be like, over under $20. Like, what's in here? It truly was like a treasure hunt. Like it really was. You didn't know what was going to be in a binder, in a box, in an unopened bubble mailer. There were multiple times that like I know that Dom found something and he was like, oh, no way. Like this oddball item that I've been watching on my eBay want list, here's 4 of them. Like that happened several times, just over and over and over again. So to get to the point of wrapping up the deal and then looping up kind of the tail end of this story here. So we're about 5 hours in. And Dom, I'll let you take the lead here in just a second. But we're about 5 hours in. And again, we haven't stopped. Like, haven't stopped for lunch, haven't stopped to get a drink. No one's left for the bathroom, nothing. Like, my original contact actually left like 2 hours in because the other guy said he was good. He left to go to the gas station to get something to drink and was like, you guys need anything? We're like, we're good. And we just kept going through stuff. He came back. So at this point, we're about 5 hours in. And tell him what happened, Dom.
So it's a big part of the reason why I wore the Keep It Moving, rest in peace, Coach Wells. We got to a point where this notebook that Jeb and his dad had been adding to of stuff of, reasonable value, like stuff that's not going to be in a value box, it had gotten to 6th page. So there was 6 pages of stuff that wasn't priced in the photos on top of what we thought the stuff was valued. I was just like, okay, I've seen enough. So trying to be a little bit nonchalant, I tried to get Patrick's attention and I said, hey, like, I know this is like, I think this is like a pretty good time to like stretch, take a bathroom break, like discuss, like kind of thing. And Jake's like so in the zone with whatever he's like sorting through that he was just like, oh yeah, you earned it, man. Like, go ahead. And I like walk away and like just stare at him. And he does not clock it at all. I'm at the end of the storage unit hallway. Doesn't clock it at all. So I get Papa Brewer to be like, hey, like me and him need to talk. Like this is getting near the end here. And he went over and talked to the owner and kept him busy while me and Jake convened, went through the notebook, talked some numbers, and we're ready to be like, hey, like now, like this is what he said he wanted. This is what we think's in there in value. Let's find that middle ground. Let's find that number. So I'll let you get into the actual negotiation of things, but I'd put in the work for like 4 hours straight of digging, pulling stuff out, writing it in the list. And even the stuff that wasn't getting on the list, there was great stuff that is very collectible, value box, good stuff. So it was just at that point where I was just like, yeah, like we need to keep it moving here, because if you do close on this deal, which I was hoping you did, we still have to get the U-Haul. We still have to load everything that we just took out back into these tubs and stuff, and we have to load it onto a U-Haul and get out of there. So that was a whole process, but I'll let you get into the actual negotiation and what you thought of during our little powwow before.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say the final number that I actually paid, but I am going to give an idea of how this negotiation went and a little bit of the thought behind it. So Dom and I agreed that we had saw at least the 40 grand in value, and we knew that we hadn't gone through everything. And with the treasure hunt aspect of this, we were fairly confident that there was going to be some more value. But we agreed very conservatively on the low end. We thought we had seen 40 to 45 grand worth of stuff at this point. And so I went back. I told the seller, hey, like, if we're going to do this, I need to send my brother and my dad to get a U-Haul. So let's get down to it. And something that was uniquely cool about this whole process, like when I talked to him first on the phone, like about a week prior to this, he knew what I did for a living. He shared with me that he was a Christian. And I actually asked him if we could pray over the phone, about this whole process for both of us, that, there are things bigger than cardboard in this deal. And, I don't want to go down to Alabama to make a brother in Christ angry over cardboard because we weren't able to come to a deal. Like if it was able to work out, wonderful. Like I would love for it to, but it's okay that if it doesn't. There are bigger things than, pieces of cardboard with dead guys on them. And, he really appreciated that. And we'd actually prayed when we got there before we opened the storage unit. And right before this negotiation, I said, I think we should again. We're about to talk some serious numbers here, and we want to keep the main thing, and keep the right perspective. And he loved that idea, so we did that together. Once we were done, I said, first of all, you told me you'd be at 40 grand, and off the top, I just want to say I agree with the value because that was reasonable. I thought there was at least that much there, so I told him that. And I said, if you went and sold this stuff on eBay, roughly 12-15% right off the top. Okay. That would cost you if you did it yourself. Now I know you want to get out of this storage unit. You're paying for that a month. That's going to save you a little bit of money there. Also, I've got to consider, my time and effort to do this. Do you know how much time we've spent today just going through this? Do you know how much more time it's going to take just to go through it? Not to mention to organize it, to price it, to take pictures, to list it. Like I said, I don't know if you really understand how long that's going to take. Like I look at this stuff and like, this is a part-time for fun, earn my hobby money kind of thing. Like this could take me a year. Like, I don't know how long this is going to take. And so I shot him a number, and I'll just say that my opening number was in the 5 figures. I'll put it that way. And he's like, oh, I don't know if I can, quite get to that. And he countered significantly lower than his 40, enough that I felt like, okay, there might be a middle ground here. Maybe there's a shot we can get this done. This is serious money for me, putting this kind of money on the line and the strings I had to pull to make this happen. If those that made it happen watch this video, thank you again. But I made one more counter. He made another counter, and we were very close. We actually ended up being about $1,000 off. And I was a little bit out of my comfort zone of what I wanted to pay. I think he was a little out of his comfort zone of how low he wanted to go. And I stood there, and I actually asked him if I could leave some of the bulk, because I would pay some less money. We could talk about what I really wanted to take, because the vast majority of this stuff is good stuff. There was a little bit of bulk with it, especially in like sealed wax. Now, while there's value to it in 90s and 80s sealed wax, and there's some 2000s sealed wax, like I legit just didn't want to mess with it. And if I could leave a lot of that stuff there, I may not need a U-Haul. We might get it in our vehicle. I saved a couple $100. I get what I really, really want. Everybody wins, because he was kind of partial to that stuff anyways. But he was adamant he wanted to move it all. He wanted to clear the storage unit. So I was like, okay, I'm here. You're there. I think about it, and I look at Dom. And I say, Dom, the reason I brought you here is I wanted a second hobby opinion that knows what they're talking about, looking what I'm looking at. That it's not your money. You're not as invested as I am. Maybe you'll be a little less emotional, a little less impartial. So then what did you say to the two of us?
I was dead silent the entire negotiation because it was hashtag not my place. And of all things, he's just like, hey, like, Dom, I flew you in. You're my Pawn Stars expert. Like, what do you think? And I'm a guy who has a $500 firewall for cards, so I know nothing about 5-figure deals. Nothing, not a thing. I don't. The comic card, never heard of her. So I was kind of in a place where I was just like, hey, like, usually when both sides feel uncomfortable a little bit, it's a good deal. If you're $1,000 off, just each of you come in the middle one more time, meet at $500 in the middle, and the rest is history, as they say.
I paused. I stuck out my hand. He shook it. We hugged. Sent my brother and my dad to get the U-Haul.
Mm-hmm.
We loaded that thing up and got out of the storage unit building about 15 minutes before it closed. We stopped at a restaurant in Alabama to eat on the way back and made the trek. Now, at this point, after we leave the storage unit, once it's cleared, we load the U-Haul. This is the first time the group chat hears from us again, and we literally send them a picture of me and Dom in an empty storage unit. Mm-hmm. So at that point, Drew, you guys are back in the loop 6 hours later. I'll let you take it from here.
Okay. So one slight correction is you just use the phrase back in the loop. Because again, all we got was a picture of an empty storage unit. No context, no dollar amount, no what did you find, no what's going on. All we knew is you're in front of an empty storage unit. So just as I sat here and re-listened to this entire story be recounted and didn't say a word, that's pretty much what we dealt with the entire day. Was nothing, not a word, not a picture, not a whatever. So again, we get this and we light up the phone. What's going on? What happened? How did it go? What did you find? Whatever. And silence. Still nothing. Nothing. The only thing we got was we ate at Buc-ee's, which has nothing to do with what was in the collection, what you paid, what happened, anything. All I knew is you had crappy food and you were about to have diarrhea. That's all I knew. So again, my point is we were like anticipating, and again, it was the Christmas, but you know what? Christmas is now 2 weeks later. That's kind of what it felt like. So Jared and I are now at the game, and actually we're out of the game at this point. We left and we're kind of making our way back to the car, and we've got the kids with us. My daughter and his kids were all with us. And we had a great time. So that part was good. But, the anticipation was kind of old at that point, like, whatever. But so we start heading back home and we'll figure out, because I also did know, you guys had almost no sleep, tons of driving. I understand the distances and all that stuff. So I also understood the fatigue you went through, probably the emotional highs and lows of whatever. I just didn't have any details. None of us had any details. So that's kind of where we were on this at this point. So we knew Buc-ee's. We knew there was some empty storage shed that we assumed cards came out of. Yeah, I guess we knew you had to have a U-Haul. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. But other than that, I didn't know, any details. Now, I will say this. I'll fill in what we didn't know. Excuse me. Was at this point, the reason you were not communicating back was you were furiously going through the 6 pages trying to price out, because while you felt comfortable, I'm assuming some of this, while you felt comfortable with the negotiation, with what the value was, with what you paid, with where your profit margin and blah, 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 you also really wanted to make sure, is this really, a $200 card? Because we kind of guessed that, and so you were going online and you were trying to figure out all these prices and filling in as best as you could. No, we didn't know any of that stuff either. So, but so I'll give you a little bit of a break on that. But sometimes no news is better than, I don't know, a random picture. So anyway,
When
go ahead.
You're right. I was feeling some of that. Like Dom joked about, like, comic card, I don't know her. Well, 5-figure deal, I didn't know her. Now I do. And I really wanted to know, did I just make a huge mistake or am I going to be okay? And at the same time, I also knew that, like, all right, like, not that I've got to like squeeze every ounce of value I can out of Dom, but like I have someone else here that knows what they're doing, like that I don't have to do all this by myself. And at that point, we had already been in grind mode, and it was just like we were running on pure adrenaline anyways. We just couldn't stop. So Dom and I are literally comping that whole, notebook on that ride after supper, and that itself was also very exciting because we'd be like, oh yeah, that's about what we thought it was. That's $50. That's 60. There's 100 there, and then there were some nice surprises on there too,
Mhm.
of like we knew that they were valuable, but we didn't know how valuable.
Mhm.
Like, for example, one that jumps out, a Michael Jordan 90s insert called Soul of the Game. We knew that it was a 90s insert Jordan and it probably had some value, but when we looked up what it was worth raw and what those are worth graded, because it was graded by a non-mainstream company, so we're thinking like crossover. But if this thing gets a 7, if it gets an 8, if it gets a 9, we're talking potential comma card here. So we had some exciting moments doing that. And as we get towards the tail end of doing that, because I'm on my phone, me and Dom are both on our phones doing eBay, doing 130 point, that whole thing. Neither one of us really looking at our text messages. And I think Dom was like, hey, did you see Drew's message? So, Drew, tell us what kind of epiphany that you had and what you texted us and why.
Well, remember, Jared and I were at the game in Atlanta, and we are heading back now. Where Jared and I both live is up in Northeast Georgia, and it just so happens that from Atlanta up the road that we would take if you continued on it is the same road that you would have taken up to North Carolina, just to go out of the state up into North Carolina. So for a stretch there, we would have been on the same exact road. Now, I don't know anything except for there's an empty storage shed, like I said. But Jared and I were talking about this collection and what we think may happen and all this. And he says, "Hey, why don't you text them and say, where are you guys at? Maybe they're closed or maybe not. We're just kind of curious because we're on our way home." So I do. I text and Jake answers pretty quick and says, "We're no. I sorry. I called.
You
That's
called
what I
me.
did. That's what I called." And I say, "Hey, where you guys at?" And you said, "Oh, we're passing exit so and so on whatever road." And I was like, "No way. You are like 10 minutes behind us." And it just happened to be in that huge stretch when you were all the way down in Alabama, heading all the way to North Carolina, and for this one gap of road, which is probably, I don't know, maybe a little more than an hour's time, that we were going to be on the same road, you happened to be in the same location pretty much. So Jared asks on the phone, he says, "Hey, do you guys need gas?" Turns out you do. So do we. So we said, "We'll find a gas station, let you know where we are." We pull off an exit, go to a gas station, let you know, and sure enough, 10 minutes later, you come rolling in. So for the first time, we actually got actual information, and there was this massive relief and excitement. And of course, I haven't seen Dom in over a year personally, and I don't get to see Jake. We talk all the time, but we don't get to see each other but a couple times a year. I think January may have been the last time we saw each other up in Hickory, and so it was really good. It was just nice to visit as friends, and even though it was in a kind of remote gas station somewhere, but with the bathrooms out of order. But
Mm.
so that Bucky's was coming back in a bad. No, I'm just teasing. But anyway, so yeah, we had a nice little reunion, and you're now going adrenaline and no sleep. 100 miles an hour. I don't even know what you're talking about. You're showing me a notebook, and then there was this and this and this and this, and I was like, okay, okay. So then it was like we had nothing all day, and then it was like information overload, and it was making almost no sense. So
All or nothing.
we, but we that was great. That was one of those moments that was just it worked out perfect because not because we finally got the information, but we got to see you guys. And I thought, well, I don't know when I'm going to get to see Dom again. It just happened to be in a highway in a gas station, so that part of it was super cool. So that's what happened up at that point.
So we're like throwing information at him from like the day. We're throwing the stuff from the notebook. We actually like open the U-Haul and show him just like the mass of stuff. We take a picture, the four of us, in front of the U-Haul at this random gas station in Georgia, because it was just like what a cool moment. Like you guys couldn't be with us for the whole thing, but like we still got to meet up and like share part of the day together. So after we meet up there, we still have probably like I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours back to my parents' house.
Can I tell one quick funny antidote or
Yeah,
story
yeah,
real quick? So
yeah. Go ahead.
remember, my daughter is with me. She's 13, and so she knows Jake a little bit, but she doesn't see him very often ever actually. So we do the whole hug goodbye thing or whatever, And as Jake and Dom are walking back to their vehicle and we're walking back to ours, my daughter says, "Dad, I'm taller than Jake." She's 13-year-old girl. And I was like, "Yes, you are, honey." So anyway, I wanted to add that in because I just thought that was really funny.
Yeah,
That
so
was really funny
you
because she
that
couldn't care less about baseball cards or any
That's
of
what
this
she
stuff.
took away.
But she was taller, she was taller than Patrick, and that was a big deal to her. So anyway, I thought that was funny. Sorry,
Uh,
continue.
Oh man.
you'll have to show her that clip. So that happens. We established that I'm short on both height and money at this point. And so, we head back to my parents' house. Dom and I go to sleep. This is Saturday night. Dom and I sleep about 3-4 hours and wake up and drive 3 hours to my church to be in time for Sunday morning service. We were there at the church, and I think that Dom brings it up to me. What's going to happen after church? So I'll let Dom take it here for a minute. But we're at service. People are asking me like, "Why do you have a U-Haul attached to your truck?" And I'm having to tell them like, "I went to Alabama. Baseball cards, not a big deal," kind of thing. And I'm like, "What?" But Dom has some news that he brings to me that's going to further add to this story.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see like everyone's like reactions because you just pull up with a U-Haul straight to church, did not go home. But the kind of like the revelation of it was that on the way to church, Drew had texted me because texting you was a crapshoot that entire weekend. So he texted me as the passenger and said like, "Hey, like, I got the go ahead. Like, I have some free time. Like, I can come up and help you guys. Like, just where do you want me to meet you? Like, what's the game plan for like starting to sort and move this stuff out of the U-Haul today?" And I coordinated with him as to like, hey, like we're going to service, then we'll get grabbing lunch, and then this time in this area kind of thing. So Drew, after seeing it at the gas station, what changed in those hours on the drive home till you texted me in the morning to like get you going to North Carolina?
Well, of course, after we got back in the car, Jared and I are talking now, and now we have, I guess, more details. But and and I'm like, I wonder what this, and I wonder and I'm like, how are they going to do all this? Because I also knew you, Dom, had a flight Sunday night, so and you had to return the U-Haul. So I mean, it's not a matter of organizing; it's a matter of just unloading it. You know what I mean? And when are you going to do this? And how is it going to work? Where are you going to put it? I've been to your house. And while you have a nice house, you also have two little boys who have a lot of things. And so, I mean, storage space is a premium, And so Jared says, "Well, why don't you go up tomorrow?" This is again Saturday night. And I was like, "Oh, I can't do that. I've got this and that to do." He's like, "You said you're off on Monday." He said, "Just why don't you go?" And I was like, I could do that." So I get home and it's pretty late. My wife's already in bed and I go to bed. So Sunday morning we're up and we're chatting and she's, "How was the game?" And did our daughter like it and this and that. And I said, "Hey, we met them, the U-Haul side of the road gas station." I said, Jared, he said something about, "Why don't you go up there?" And I couldn't do that. And it really was not in my mind. I wasn't hinting towards anything. And she said, "Well, why don't you go?" And I said, "I can't go up there. I've got this list of things to do." I had put off some stuff to go to the game. And she's like, "Drew, two of your best friends are like 2.5 hours away with a ton of baseball cards. This is not going to happen again. Just go up there and just help them do whatever they need and hang out for a couple hours. And you're going to regret it if you don't." And I was like, "All right." So yeah, just like Dom said, I text Jake. I was like, "Hey, what, blah, blah, you need some help?" Crickets, nothing. And I was like, "You know what? I should have learned my lesson." "Hey, Dom." Within, I don't know, 3 minutes, Dom's like, "Come on up." I was like, "Great, now I know where to go." So yeah, I get in my vehicle and I start heading up north. And yeah, we rendezvoused at your house. I pulled up to your house, what, 5 minutes after you did,
Yep.
and had a really quick lunch. And I'll let you, whoever wants to continue, go on with what happened at that point. So
Yeah. So at this point, it's like, all right, all this is not going to fit in my house. Like Drew mentioned, we're going to have to split up in two locations. So my house and somewhere else. And so my goal was like, all right, quote unquote the good stuff, I want to keep at my house, the best of the best that's on site. The stuff that I can go through later, or the stuff that's maybe not as good, I'll store in the other location. I'll get to it when I get to it, kind of thing. But I'm like, I know I didn't see it all. Also, I didn't pack this U-Haul by myself. I don't know where all of it is. Okay. But now I've got Dom and I've got Drew. And I'm like, you know what? We're going to do it right now in my driveway. We're going to open these bins. We're going to figure out the best of our ability what's good and what's not. We'll start separating piles in my garage. The rest will stay in the U-Haul to go to the separate location because Dom's got a flight coming, right? I've actually got to be at church for another event in a few hours. So we basically set up shop in my driveway. And Drew actually snapped one picture of us going through it in my driveway, which I just think is so cool. It brings me memories of us doing that. But the same thing all over again, man. Like, we started finding more stuff we never even saw while we were in Alabama. Good stuff, too. And, like, same thing. Like, unopened package, $20 over under, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it hit and sometimes it didn't. But, like, the sealed wax alone, like, I probably have, like, 50 unopened boxes. Heritage, Topps Chrome, Bowman Chrome, Allen and Ginter, some football, some baseball, just like on and on of that stuff. Some oddball stuff of like some starting lineups of like Jordan, programs, magazines. Man, it just goes on and on. We found more like pre-war. We found more vintage. You know, it wasn't just the newer stuff. Stacks and stacks and stacks of PSA graded, low pop, Griffey, Ripken, Nolan Ryan, just over and over and over again. Like, every time I thought that we had found everything good, we hadn't. So Dom and I had already experienced that, and you'd heard us talk about it. But then, Drew, you got to see some of it yourself. So then, like, being hands-on compared to hearing us just like rattle on about it, adrenaline, you know, sleep-deprived conversation, what was it like having it right there?
Well, my impression was not. I wasn't, to be quite honest, I wasn't overwhelmed with the volume, because I've seen massive collections, but every massive collection I've seen like that is pretty much a high percentage of junk wax. So I wasn't overwhelmed with the volume until I started digging and realized there is no junk wax. We're not getting, 5,000 count boxes of 90 Donruss or whatever. That didn't exist in there. So that was my first recollection was, yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but this is all pretty good. Even down to like, well, yeah, this is dollar box stuff, but it's still dollar box stuff. It's not, it's not give it away or throw it away kind of things. And so we started digging through, and then the second thing that I realized, besides the quality of it, was the randomness of it. Because again, you flipping through, I don't know, pick a binder or a box or whatever, and you're flipping through cards and you're looking at whatever, and so not penny sleeves, not top loaders, not card savers, just, raw cards in a stack, and you're going through and you're like, oh man. And like, hey, look, a Dave Winfield rookie card. 2 cards later, look, an Altuve rookie. Although I think you found the Altuve rookie, Dom. And then you're like, dang, this is a really nice, sharp. I remember specifically Burke Blyleven rookie card, 71 tops. That was like all black all the way around, nice and clean. And again, not and. I was like, you got any more penny sleeves? You got any more top loaders? Like, we're trying to figure out what to semi protect as we're going through this. So that was my second impression was the randomness of it, and stuff mixed in, football, 90s football mixed in with, 50s baseball mixed in with, I don't know, inserts of baseball from the late 90s or whatever. And that was the randomness of it. So that was the fun part, and that's when it also started to hit me personally, like, this is a lot of work to organize. Like, and of course, this is not, you didn't buy a collection to like explode your own personal collection. This was an investment to flip, to make money, to help fund your actual collection. The amount of work that I was going to take for you, and has taken, approved, right, to be able just to organize to say, hey guys, we have some cards for sale. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing. So that's where I was taken back and starting to really like, oh my gosh, how are you going to do this? And, what strategy are you going to have? Where are you going to sell all this stuff? Because if you sell it all individually, this will take literally years because there's you said tens of thousands, but really hundreds of thousands of items, all of them with some kind of value. So that was my impression as we stood there. And then the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting was I realized very quickly, as many conversations as Dom and I have had, great time in Cleveland at the National a couple years ago. Realized very quick Dom is not meant for Southern heat at all, and he is like, I can't do this. I didn't know. And the funny thing is, it wasn't even that hot.
It
I mean,
wasn't
it was
that
hot,
bad.
but it was not that hot, And but we are outside, and both you two are crouched inside the U-Haul. It's not like it was air conditioned with a couch in there.
It
And I'm
wasn't.
standing outside of it because I couldn't even fit in it. And man, I got so sunburned. I didn't even realize on the back of my neck, and
Yeah,
it was like a sweat.
bad.
So it's like either die inside from the stuffy heat or outside from the raw sun. But that was definitely a memory that was made that day. So
When one of you guys during that time opened a box that like wasn't labeled at all, and inside it was like a complete modern set, but on top loose, no top loader,
It
no
was
nothing.
yep.
Mike Trout update rookie.
It was the whole. It
Like,
was a complete 2011 Topps update set that had 3 Altuves, a Trout, a couple of Blackmans. Like there was doubles of cards too. There wasn't doubles of the Trout, but the Trout was just laying on top.
sitting on top.
No penny sleeve, no top loader. Like it was just a hodgepodge. And that box was sitting in one of like 6 like 5x2 like heavy duty whatever gallon like tup just
bins, yeah, like a
giant
tote,
bins. Like
yeah.
there was a bunch of them, and there was just like little boxes and stuff mixed in, autographed helmets, like binders were in these bins as well that
Awesome.
were multi-sport. And it was the same thing whether you're going through a box, a bin, there would just be something that you weren't expecting to see on the next page or in the next row or the next card. That joy of just digging for gold and finding it everywhere. Everyone always says quantity or quality collection. That there was quality in quantity throughout the entire U-Haul, which was just insane when we talk about these collections that have so much junk wax or so much this or so much that. It was just really incredible to have those memories, finding more stuff that wasn't even in our notebook and just tallying up the numbers in our heads as well about like, hey, like all like look at all this extra value to help us all feel better about like how the whole thing went. So no, it was truly an incredible experience. The lack of sleep and the sweating in the southern heat all involved.
So now, kind of where we stand now and where we're at. Dom said that there was a quantity of quality. To give you an idea, we're storage unit, U-Haul. We're talking huge amounts of stuff. All right. At the time of the recording of this video, we're a couple months removed from this deal. And every single night for 2 to 3 hours, every chance I get outside of my responsibilities with my family and work and that kind of stuff, when everybody's asleep, I've been going through this stuff, from just seeing it for the first time to what I would say segmenting it. Let's just get an area with, here's the vintage football, here's the modern basketball, here's the vintage baseball, so on and so forth. Segmenting to then actually organizing and sorting to holdering to pricing. Like I've put in triple digit hours for sure. And to speak to kind of what I got, I have one 3-row box that I would consider junk that I might throw away. Everything else is good stuff. Either from, like Drew said, yeah, there's dollar box stuff, but there's multiple comma cards in here. There's multiple single pop graded items in this stuff. All 3 sports, some even golf, non-sports. There's some comics in here. Like the sealed wax, stuff that I never thought I would even have in my possession or have ever seen before. But now this is where you guys come in. During that negotiation, I said, there's one final thing I need to know before I shake your hand. I need to know your dad's name that owned the card shop. And this is the only time I'm going to reveal a first name. His dad's name was Virgil. He was actually a military vet and opened a card shop after his service. And I said, I want to name this collection after your dad. And he got a little emotional. That really meant a lot to him. But it's the Virgil collection for that reason. So now I will be selling pieces of the Virgil collection. To give you guys an idea of some of the different things that I have and what I'm going to do, I'll say this at the top and at the end before we jump off again. But Sunday night, 9 o'clock, October the 26th, will be my first live stream sale for the Virgil collection. I'll do a few reminders leading up to that, but October 26th, that Sunday night, 9 o'clock, as close as I can be to 9 o'clock once my sons are asleep, will be the first live sale for this stuff. Now, I'm going to try and hit all the different segments, and then I'm going to show some stuff. You guys have been listening for an hour. If you're still here, I'm going to show some cards and some things that we have. Drew and Dom, remind me if I miss a certain section of types of things that we have. So I'm just going to go by sport first to try and remember it in my head. Baseball, there are things from the late 1800s up through 2023, from Babe Ruth pins to Shohei Ohtani, from Mike Trout to Willie Mays. Sets, not full sets of stuff, but we've got 50s stuff. We've got 60s stuff. We got 70s stuff. We got 40s stuff. We got 30s stuff. Not just the mainstream Topps and Bowman either. We've also got like MP and Co. We've got Goudies. We've got play balls. We've got oversized stuff. I know there's Butterfingers. There's exhibits. I kept discovering stuff even after these guys were gone. Loose in a bin, no top loader, no penny sleeve, no nothing, was a 1907 Deach Tigers postcard of Sam Wahoo Crawford. I couldn't believe it. I've never held one before. I just kept finding stuff like that. So in baseball, even like going through those binders that we talked about, there'd be a binder where it'd be like modern card, but right next to it, vintage card of that Hall of Fame player. I've got tons of Golden Press, of Fleer, of stuff like that in baseball. I've got autographs of Hall of Famers on the Hall of Fame postcards, a few Perez Steels, some 8x10s. That's just baseball. I've got Topps coins. I've got Oddball. I've got Modern. Tons and tons and tons of Ripken, King Griffey Jr., Nolan Ryan, low pop oddball things of those guys. I'm talking PSA, Beckett, SGC, graded stuff. Sure, there's some that are also graded by non-mainstream companies, but a lot of really good items in baseball. In basketball, we've got 90s inserts. We've got 90s rookies. We've got Kobe's. We've got AI. We've got Jordans. We've got Isaiah's, Magic's, Birds. We've got 80s stuff. Rookies. I think I've got a complete 88 Fleer set. I've got the partial sticker set from 86. All kinds of stuff there. 70s vintage. I've got Tall Boys, handful of those. I've got one of the Topps rulers. Got some graded vintage basketball, even down to the 50s. And there's a George Mikan in there. Then in football, just this week, right before we recorded this, I found some football binders and was shocked at some of the stuff I found, both PSA graded, mostly of vintage and raw. Desert Shield cards in baseball, I forgot those. I have literal hundreds of Desert Shield baseball cards from 91. Commons, Stars, Hall of Famers, raw, and graded, up to PSA 9s. Just crazy stuff. Then, like I said, in football, I've got 80s, 90s Hall of Fame rookies, partial sets. I've got a complete set of 1970 Topps football, including, this is sitting right on top, a Johnny Unitas PSA 8, stuff like that. There are Hall of Famers in the 60s, in the 50s, in the 40s. I've got some Leaf football cards, some oddball football stuff from that era. All sports. I mentioned the unopened wax earlier. I've got lots of 90s, 2000s unopened wax, if that's your thing. Oddball stuff, different things. Before I show a few cards, did I leave out any sections? Or did I cover
Uh,
them?
the comic cards, you talked about those before we started recording.
Yeah.
And I'm quoting you, rare Tiger Woods rookie card. You didn't mention that. For the golf fans out there. I mean, you did say Topps coins, but there's a lot of those, if I recall. There was a bunch of those. Um, uh,
Tons. I
what else?
probably have
A
like
lot of regional stuff, food issue stuff, some of the oddball little things. There were sets that I remember. There was a set. You asked me, you ever seen these? Nope, Dom, nope. None of us had seen them. That was probably late 40s, early 50s. I'm not going to say too much more. I'll let you, once you get to the sale on that, you did find out what it is. It's, not high dollar, but still, if for a set collector, you don't see this stuff every day. If none of the three of us had ever seen it, then it's probably something a set collector, or I'm sorry, a type collector would want. Just one of those types of cards. So lots of variety. If you collect anything within sports cards, there's got to be something somewhere in this collection for you. I guarantee it. Whether I only like the high dollar graded stuff or the low pop stuff, or I'm a set collector or a Hall of Fame collector or a type collector, every single that I can think of aspect of anybody I know within this hobby, I thought, oh man, so and so would like that. Well, that would be perfect for so and so's collection. I wonder if X person has that. I thought that many, many a times as you've been sending texts and pictures and updates, finding stuff. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm taking on it is just stuff and good stuff. So when you do this sale, or when Jake does the sale, uh, I really suggest be there. And if I've only got a $10 budget, there'll probably be something in there. But if I've got, the combo kind of budget, there may be something in there too. So um, definitely a kind of a thing that I think you want to be part of. I've been blessed to be able to already obtain something from it, which is dear to me. And so it's just one of those type of, like you said when you started this whole recording, Jake, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for you, and turning it into that kind of a thing for so many other people. It's just kind of a cool story and background to the whole thing.
Yeah, so I've got a few to show just to give everybody an idea. So like just the stack I grabbed first, like that's a Lawrence Taylor rookie, PSA 8. You got a 59 Topps Bart Starr, PSA 5. 1952 Bowman Small George Hallis, graded in a 6. But then there's raw vintage football too, like 55 All-American Don Hudson rookie. 55 All-American Red Grange rookie, and some of those, are nice shape. This is a big card. The 49 Leaf Chuck Bednarik rookie. Stuff like this, like Hall of Fame autographs, like Art Rooney, original owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not exactly a common autograph. Lots of vintage football, modern football autographs, cards. Then, like in modern baseball, like there's the Ichiro Pujols Topps Chrome rookie. That's in a 9, a Beckett 9. Or even like the more obscure stuff, like this Ripken. It's a 2000 Skybox EX Exceptional Blue, numbered to 250. Stuff in the 90s that's low pop, numbered, that kind of stuff. Just not something you see every day. There's that rarer Tiger Woods rookie. You can find these, but it's a lot tougher to find one in a PSA 10. Then like basketball wise, like Kobe, Bowman's Best rookie in a 9. A Metal Universe Kobe rookie, 8. Then like neat stuff like this you don't see every day, like 85, 86 Bulls schedule with Jordan on it. I've got several of these different years, including one from his rookie year. Don Nelson, tall boy, Hall of Fame rookie. And I told these guys it's like a freaking minefield in here right now with all the stuff I've got spread around this room. So I just tried to pull an example of some different categories, like Wilt Chamberlain. Then it's there. Then there's oversized stuff like Isley's discs, Nolan Ryan in a 9. Or, if you want to be real obscure, like Jiffy Pop, Nolan Ryan, PSA 10, the total pop on it's 19. Or even, I mentioned there's a fair bit of pre-war. Like this is a Mecha double folder. It's a common, but it's graded a 5. Like if you like them in nicer condition, there are Hassans, multiple Hassans. I've got 3 or 4 of them right here. Or there's cool oddball football too, like this Joe Namath final sticker. And there's big boy modern cards as well. We mentioned that's the Tom Brady Bowman rookie. I've got the Bowman Chrome too. Or shout out Sammy Thunder team issue Nolan Ryan card. Oh, in a PSA 9. The list goes on and on. I mentioned I've got Desert Shield. Not only I've got raw, I've got graded and multiples of Hall of Famers. Like you can see a couple right there, or big names. Barry Bonds, Randy Johnson. Like I think I've got 4 Randy Johnsons. I've got the Ken Griffey Juniors. I love this one. This is one of the biggest cards. This is a Desert Shield Nolan Ryan PSA 9 autographed with an inscription on it. Like that's a big boy card. It goes on and on and on. This video could be like 6 hours long. But if you want a piece of the Virgil collection, or if you just want to see what's in it and be along for the ride, the next time we're going to share anything about this and show a lot more cards and items from this collection, October 26th, Sunday night, 9 o'clock Eastern. Come hang out with us. Come see what we got and continue to enjoy this story with us. It's not every day that I think I'll get to come into a collection like this. And I think it's pretty cool that I get to document it, share it with a couple of my friends here, and with a lot of my friends out there that are watching this still here in just a little bit. So any final thoughts, guys, before we close here?
No, I think between over an hour of us all yapping and the showcase you just did there, it really hits on what Drew said is no matter the vastness of this collection is in these potential buyers' favor. Like there is something for everybody in this collection. No matter what sport you collect, what era you collect, there are great cards, graded, high grade, mid grade, low grade, the works. It is truly something you won't want to miss. Rookies, Hall of Famers, stars, all those great buzzwords. And yeah, it was really awesome to be a part of it. And I'm looking forward to the 26th, and so should all of you.
I'm going to say a couple things, sort of housekeeping little things. Do Jake a favor. Say, comment in here, hey, whatever, but don't start asking for prices yet because he's not ready. That's why it's so far out as far as when we're recording this. I think Jake, you're gonna announce it. Hey, it's coming up a couple more weeks, or 1 more week, or 10 days, or whatever. So look for those announcements. But I will say, because of the size of this collection and the insane amount of work that has had to go in by especially Jake through all this, that October is not the only time this is going to be for sale. This is just day number 1. Mm-hmm. Some of the stuff you saw tonight, maybe some of the stuff that goes up, but there will be great stuff in the future. So this is a continuing story. A lot of what this video was about was just to document it for us who got to live our different parts of it, whether it was in the storage shed or in complete silence. That's what a lot of this is for. So we appreciate you coming along. But yeah, do Jake a favor and don't start bombarding him with, hey, what do you want for this and how much for that? Join us on the October date and mark it on your calendar, and it'll be fun. Even if you don't get anything or you don't see anything that night, there will be stuff in the future. And again, this is just something fun for me and for Dom. We're here as a friend and trying to help out. Jake's not paying us on the side to promote this thing. This is just fun. So anyway, that's what I've got to say about it.
The whole thing's been a huge blessing. Really cool opportunity that God's put in my life, not just financially or anything like that, but just for my enjoyment. I mean, it's been pretty special to be able to do this on a hobby that I enjoy and do it with some people that I love. And I want to share it with more people that I care about as well here on YouTube. So thank you guys for being here tonight, talking through this with me, sharing the story. And I look forward to the first of many hangouts regarding the Virgil collection on October the 26th, 9 p.m. that Sunday night. But until I see you guys next time here, everybody keep collecting and God bless.